My mother always had lofty expectations for her own life. She really
Mhm.
was a beauty. And she thought she was going to just end up in a mansion with, uh, whatever. And her life didn't go that way. And I think that she was bitter because of that. I was not the beauty that she was. She reminded me of that every day, so that I grew up thinking I was ugly, really. And now I think I'm cute. I like my looks now, but it took me till I was 70 years old.
There
There
you
it is, and
go.
there I am.
And you look.
Oh,
All right, let's settle the phone
oh
down.
my gosh. Oh, people and technology. Good Lord. I do need to be in assisted living, and then someone would be assisting me.
Oh my God,
I
Henrietta.
did it! And
Yes,
I'm alive!
we
Yay!
did. And might I say, you look gorgeous, my love. You
That
look
was good.
gorgeous.
Put
You look
slap on
gorgeous.
enough kabuki makeup and you look good, you know?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, shall we get started? Are you okay to get started?
Yes, yes, you're the boss. You just tell me.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining the Get Out of Your Comfort Zone series. In today's episode, we're here with Henrietta Alves, and she is a phenomenal woman with so many layers and so many amazing stories to inspire all of us, but especially the women out here in the audience. And so I truly hope that you are moved, and some of what Henrietta says deeply resonates with you. So thank you, Henrietta, for joining. I would love for you to begin by telling our audience the story of how we met and how you interjected yourself into my life in the most beautiful of ways.
Well, I was leaving dinner by myself, walking down the street of Esplanade Avenue, New Orleans. People are so afraid to come to New Orleans. I walk around at night all the time. Nothing to be afraid of. If you fear, you attract what you fear. So I feel safe. So I was walking home, and I'm in a distance. I hear this drumming, and then I realize it's getting closer to me. And I always want to announce I'm 78 years old. Yay, me. And so what I do is when I hear young people coming up behind me, I just move over to the right, like I'm a trucker, and let them just pass. Otherwise, it becomes awkward of me trudging along and they're ready to go where they're going. So as Berhan got next to me, I said, "Are you Brazilian?" And he said, "No, why would you think I'm Brazilian?" And I said, "Because in Brazil, everybody plays percussion instruments." And I really thought that you were a Brazilian coming up behind me. And that's how it started. How we took a half a block to get from that introduction to the mini mart where we parted company, a half a block away. In that half a block, we solved half the problems of the world. We got into such a deep discussion of life. I think we would still be talking, except Corbin
Hmm.
wanted to go see some friends, and so he dragged Farhan away from me. So
And don't
anyway, that's
forget,
how we met. And
mhm.
I never really knew that I would hear from you again. And I was so delighted when I got an email or something from you out of nowhere. And I was just thrilled because you may remember that night I said, I want to collect you. And what I do is I collect people that I know will enhance my life and understand me and everything. So
Mhm.
magical meeting. What, 5 minutes difference in either of our timing, we would have never met. Isn't that something? Life is magical.
I know. And we wouldn't be here today, and we wouldn't be embarking, in this beautiful relationship that we share, right? And
Yes.
so it just goes to say how, sort of fate and destiny brings people together, sort of if you are open to the possibilities, right? There is
Yes.
a big if there. At least that's what I believe.
Oh,
But
I
thank
believe.
you so much for reinforcing that lesson. All right. Well, thank you for that introduction. I would love, before we get into it, for me to tell the audience a little bit about sort of, give an overview of your life, and then I'd love to start at the beginning. And so, from what I know of you, Henrietta, you grew up in the South, specifically in Mississippi, and you grew up in a traditional household, and sort of as part of that upbringing, there were sort of norms that you had to sort of abide by, and sort of especially given the Southern culture and what it's known for, you found yourself studying to be a teacher in college, and then turned that into a career as a teacher, specifically as a band leader. And as a result of life and you being you, you ventured to redefine yourself and basically have another career as a musician. And, that took you far and wide, and, sort of brought people into your lives. And it eventually brought you to New Orleans, where you continued, and you raised two children in that duration, and gathered many life experiences and made many friends all over, some of whom are quite influential, right? And as a result of your life and the bold way in which you choose to live it, you have learned a lot of lessons that you are passionate about sharing with the world, right? And so that basically sort of led to a redefinition of you as not only a musician and a mother and an educator, but also a life coach. So with that, if it's okay with you, why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you tell me about your childhood, where you grew up, paint us a picture of the circumstances of your childhood so that we get a better sense of your background.
Well, as you said, I came from traditional surroundings, middle class,
Mm-hmm.
mother and father, and brother and sister. We're two children, but unfortunately, it was a chaotic. It
Mm-hmm.
was uh, my dad was troublesome, and my mom was had her issues. So it was just constant turmoil, just never a day. Every day was going to be a battle. We didn't know what was going to start it. It might be, it could be that they're fighting, or the children have done something wrong. So that starts something else. So there was not a day of peace, not a day of peace, not much love shared in the home. So I really was hungry for acceptance and uh, just affection, whatever. I just was lost in this turmoil of daily craziness. And my mother always had lofty expectations for her own life. She really
Mm-hmm.
was a beauty. And she thought she was going to just end up in a mansion with, uh, whatever. And her life didn't go that way. And I think that she was bitter because of that. I was not the beauty that she was. She reminded me of that every day, so that I grew up thinking I was ugly, really. And now I think I'm cute. I like my looks now, but it took me till I was 70 years old. I felt I was a fraud till then, that I could put on enough makeup and all this. But so it wasn't easy. But one of the things that little Southern girls all had to do at my age was to take piano lessons and to take ballet. So the ballet didn't work out so well. That kind of ended after 1 year. But I stayed with the piano lessons. And when all my other friends dropped out, I remained the rest of my life. And I think that was my salvation, was my music.
Hmm. And so tell us about your relationship with music. You mentioned, how you were first exposed to it through piano lessons, but you're not only a pianist, right? You are quite the vocalist. So paint us a picture of how, tell us more about how you were exposed to music and how music was really an escape for you and how music helped bring out the performer within you, right?
Well, I was the shyest child that
Yeah.
ever lived. That's a whole nother story. People wouldn't believe how shy I was, like in elementary school. And when I was about 12, I was just down in the church basement in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and I started playing the March from Aida. That's exactly what it was. And so some of the ladies came around and said, "Oh, we didn't realize that you played the piano. We need someone to play for Bible school. So play that for Bible school." So I did. And that was my first taste of people saying, "You do something special. You do something right." That's all I ever heard, was how I did nothing wrong and I was worthless and all that. So that was my very, very first. I can picture that moment when they asked me to play for Bible school, and that was like going to Carnegie Hall for me. So I started doing that. So then the next several years of my life, I was a pianist, accompanist, but known as a piano player. Well, you know how difficult it can be when children are ripped up from their home and moved to another location. But I think it helped me learn to adapt. I don't think it's a bad thing, but people fear of moving their children. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love the people from Clarksdale, but when I moved to Winona, Mississippi, something inside me told me I was going to reinvent myself. So I didn't even tell them I played the piano. I wanted to be a singer. And it was just like in chorus and places like that then I started being noted for being a singer. And I ended up being homecoming queen, which if you told me at 12 I would be homecoming queen, I would have laughed in your face, because I thought it was ugly, unlikable, all those things. But I put it in my head that I would really like that. So I got it.
So thank you so much for sharing that, right? Like, and thank you so much for being so honest about the trauma that was inflicted upon you by your mother, who undoubtedly, really loved you, but, still, people who love us, shower a lot of toxic energy and thoughts onto us. And so help us understand how you suffering and, this trauma at the hands of your mother and maybe other members of your family, about how you were, everything that you did was not good, that, and your looks, how that led you to nurture this thought of not only I am worthy, I would like to be a homecoming queen, but then also the steps that you took to plan for it, to manifest it. Walk us through that. How did you step out of your comfort zone to work against the odds to do that? Because I think other women need to hear this.
Yeah. I don't want this to be misinterpreted that I'm a Bible thumper or something, because I'm not. We also obviously were not a religious family. except for appearances. My mother that was very important to my mother, appearances. But we didn't go to church, none of that stuff, except maybe sprinklings. And I discovered the church, and I started going. And from that would have been like junior high school. And for the next like 10 years, the church kind of became my family. Church members and things like that became the nurturers that I had not grown up with. And I am today an extremely spiritual person. And I think that is when the spirituality entered, was at that time that some, as the Bible says, still small voice started speaking to me when no one else was speaking to me. And who told me to become a singer? Who told me I could be homecoming queen? Some, I don't know, because it surely wasn't anybody who loved me and supported me. My dad kind of was a support, but he left when I was 12, a very vulnerable age. And so I was left with the crazy woman. But so I credit the church. Now, once again, I am really not a churchgoer, but I have that feeling of that someone is still guiding my life and guided me to you. And I don't care what religion it is or no religion. I still believe there is something in whatever you feel comfortable calling it. So I'm going to credit the church and spirituality with helping change my life.
And earlier, just now, you mentioned your dad and how he sort of exited your life at a very crucial point. And you also mentioned how he was one of your cheerleaders. I believe you mentioned, he was into the opera and he sort of supported your musical endeavors.
Yes.
Paint us a picture of what did it feel like? How did your world change, in the weeks, months leading up to his exit and then after? Paint us a picture of that darkness. Help us understand.
It crept up. So it was not sudden. It was almost expected. They fought so much, and he was a womanizer. So there were times when he would leave for periods of time. And it was another insanity I'd learned to deal with, was his not being around. And there's stories about all of that too. So it didn't just happen suddenly, and then they go through the divorce and he's living with the other woman and all that kind of stuff. And again, I never felt like a victim. This is what it is. Maybe other families go through this and I don't know about it. And I forgot where I was going to say next. So it was not like tragic, but how it manifested itself negatively was that I went from being a shy child to the exact opposite. Getting thrown out of class or talking too much and acting up and just being disruptive, kind of being boy crazy. I guess trying to fill that void of somebody like me. And now my daddy's gone. He, like I say, he was not unkind to me, but what the unkindness was leaving, making a choice, which was not to be with us. Matter of fact, I know that one of your topics is women's rights and all that. That here is where women had the power. When a couple got a divorce, who always got the child? The mother.
Yeah.
And they didn't look into what kind of a mother is she. It was just, he tried to get us, but they gave us to her. So really, I never took it as a trauma or, it was horrible. It was kind of what I'd grown used to, just part of the insanity. And but in a way, I benefited because I got knocked out of my shell and into this that you see today of talking
Mm-hmm.
too much and this, that, and the other.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So tell us about, you know, the first time you mentioned sort of being a pianist and like the church sort of really supporting you in that and building you up, right? Um, how did you sort of, as you went into college and took this path that was predetermined for you, right? You didn't have a lot of choices. Talk to us about some of the struggles you faced, maybe internally or externally, as a Southern woman who had to cave to the expectations of your mother, society, based on the appearances, getting a teaching degree. Paint us a picture of that next stage of your life and, how maybe you tried to mix it up, keep hope alive, keep your resilience going during that stage, the next stage of your life.
Right. I think I must have inherited a strength because
Mm-hmm.
despite my mother's craziness, she was an extremely strong woman. Her mother
Mm-hmm.
before her was a strong woman. And I kind of think that I inherited that genetic makeup of just being strong. Another element, as you said, I am many layered, and you have only begun to feel the layers. I got so entrenched in my religion that I went to college to be a missionary to Africa or Asia or somewhere. I thought I that's how religious I was, that I thought I was meant to be a missionary, we call it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I got to this Baptist school and I realized I'm not quite as a zealot like these people are. So I think I'll just teach. So that's what kind of got me into the teaching. Because above being a teacher, be a missionary. Man, I've been a good mother. Look, she's a missionary. But uh, so so that changed. I said, well, no, these people are really, really deep into their religion. I'm not quite that deep because I like to dance, and Baptists couldn't dance. But again, the setup was girls went into, and tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
most of my age, they went into EE, they called it, elementary education. That's what you got your degree in. You just wanted to be a teacher long enough to get married. And then you were going to be a stay-at-home mom. And I knew all my life that was not for me. It was not my mother's. My mother was not a domestic kind of person, and I wasn't either. And so while the others were picking out their husbands and dating and doing this in college,
Mm-hmm.
I was performing in operas, and I was playing for the chorus to do the Messiah, and I was music, music, music. Every night that the others were going out dating, I was in a rehearsal somewhere, and that continued to through graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing, and so I did what the only thing we knew to do at the time: be a teacher, and in hopes that you could marry and didn't even need that degree, but just have it just in case. And I went on to graduate school and followed the same pattern: not dating, just doing music. And I met this really fine guy, and he was not put off by the fact that I would say, I would love to go to a movie, but I have to play for rehearsal tonight. And he would go, well, can I come?
Mm-hmm.
And I would go, well, yeah. So finally, he was the first one who wasn't put off by it. He just was curious to go do it with me. So he's the man I married. Good man. We just simply, we're really not meant for each other. And I think he's with a lady now that is perfect for him.
Mm-hmm.
And life goes the way it's supposed to. And so I followed that path till I was 31 or something, teaching and all of that. And it kind of was in the summers, teachers don't teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried being a homemaker during those 3 months, and that didn't work either. So by the grace of God or whatever, whoever you believe in, I started singing in a hotel, and that just totally changed my life.
So let's spend a little bit of time talking about that, right? Tell us, was there any moments where you had a choice, to step out of your comfort zone, which then helped to manifest this opportunity, right? Because, and I'd love to, I know I kind of heard it already, but I'd love for you to share the story with the audience, in a little bit more detail, but then also add in, were there any choices, right, that you had to make in
Yes.
order to make that happen? And share that with us, please.
Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as I wrote behind earlier today, that he is helping me
Mm-hmm.
explore my life and my life philosophies and bring up things I'd totally forgotten about. You're absolutely correct. I did have to make decisions that led to other things. While I was teaching school, I just knew that I loved it. I actually loved it, and I love all of my students, and I still am in touch with my students, and I love them, and I've still got their reports. This is like 50 years, over 50 years ago.
Wow.
That's how much I loved teaching. But just certain conditions in my particular school with the older principal who was, all he was counting the days till he retired. So that left a lot of discipline problems. And I said, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. And I was too scared. Wasn't comfortable enough to just say, I quit. So what I did was I took a sabbatical. But I never went back. But I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but like Abraham in the Bible, I'm going forth, and I don't know where this is going to lead. And look where it led. I had totally forgotten that aspect of it, that I had to kind of quit my job
Mm-hmm.
to get into this music performance field. You're absolutely
Okay.
correct.
So then continue. Tell us more about the council person and your
Okay.
first gig, right? Don't leave us hanging
Now
now.
remember, I'm 78 years old, so
Uh,
some of the people I'm talking about may not even be alive today. Probably don't want me putting their business out in public, but whatever. I was dating a city councilman in Memphis, Tennessee, and I will not say his name. He was, there's nothing wrong with it, except I know he went on to marry someone else. But I was singing in Arkansas at what's called Inspiration Point Artist Colony, and I was singing opera. So he came over there to see me, and he said, I see that you really love live performing. And he said, I think I can arrange for you to do a show it was called Lafayette's, I believe. Someone can correct me. This is anybody from Memphis. It was over in that Cooper Street. I don't know what I'm saying. But anyway,
okay.
for example, Ronnie Millsaps performed the night before I performed. So it's kind of a popular thing, not operatic at all. And I said, well, I got to come up with some popular music. They don't want to hear high notes. So I put together a band. If Dick Jacobs is watching this, he was my guitarist, and we're still in touch. We got this genius young man on the drums, and Rob, what's his name, was the bass player, and I was the keyboard player and the singer. So we put together a show. It was just supposed to be one night, and I loved it, of course. So there was no turning back to the teaching business anymore. And right after that, I went to lunch at one of the fancy hotels. It's probably demolished now, but at the time it was the Rivermont, was what it was called, in Memphis, Tennessee, for lunch. And a friend of mine came in. He says, "Oh, I'm the food and beverage director here. I'm in charge of entertainment." And I went, "Oh, that's good, because I'm a rock star now." And we started talking, and I had a job handed to me. And so we did that for the longest time. They all come to an end, those bands. Like you get new management and all that
Mm.
stuff, but that started it.
But you know, I think you hit on something important that I would love to expound upon with your permission, which is, and I bring this up because I know that a lot of women in my life struggle with this, right? But I think you really own it and you sort of are very proud of it, which is your uh, being a woman and using your strengths, one of which is your feminine wiles, right, to help further your agenda of your passions and your desires. And you do it in an unabashed manner, with confidence, without any shame. And I would love for you to spend a couple of minutes just talking about that because I think a lot of other women need to hear that.
Right. I just think that the fact that we're a woman, despite all the laws and all that that don't support us all the time, we have a power. That's why you'll hear me say, I don't much care about circumstances. I don't much care about my gender. I'm going for it anyway. It'll just be more difficult, but I'm going for it. And I I'm not ashamed to say that women get by with things because we're effervescent or we're whatever. Some women don't need that. You know, you look at Gloria Steinem back in my day, but she was hot. You know, she was a good-looking woman, and she's the one that people remember more than like Bella Abzug. I didn't say it right, but Bella, who downplayed her femininity, and so I think there is a strength. I think we have a power over some men just for the fact that we're a woman, and that is, to use the term literally and figuratively, we're seductive to certain men, and we can get our way. Some people, some women who think they're really, really, really strong feminists will say they don't use their feminine wiles, but I can bet you they do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So going back to now your burgeoning career on the stage, right? And you're part of this band that you've put together. But like you said, all good things must eventually come to an end. But we're not going to sort of spend too much time talking about that because uh, one end leads to another beautiful
Maybe.
beginning, right? So why don't you tell us how that chapter ending of your band and performing in a group led to the next chapter and some of the steps, some of the choices again that you consciously took to step out of your comfort zone, right?
Right. Well, I in Memphis is one of those cities
Mhm.
where musicians love to move there. It's like New Orleans. Musicians love to move here. Unfortunately, they are both small cities. They're more like really big towns, and there aren't enough venues for people to perform for money, which I needed because I had a son that I had to take care of. And it got to the point where with bands, I would say, well, we'll perform for da 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 da. Oh, well, this band over here said they would perform for less than that. Okay, well, then we'll play for this then. Oh, you know what? This band said they'll play for free. So it was trying to find a job that made money so I could support myself and my son that caused me to start thinking, I think I'm better off just by myself. And so I just put that out there. I don't even know how it happened that I got my first job as a solo performer. But again, my life, it just kind of goes magically most of the time. If I put my feelers out, it comes back to me. When I get in despair, I'm human. Things don't go as easily. But I decided I wanted to stop trying to deal with bands. It was just too much too many people to be dealing with and trying to get a job for a band, but I could probably do it by myself. So ironically, I went back to Clarksdale, Mississippi, that where I had grown up. It was just happenstance. And I had my first gig there, which is another funny story. We'll save that for another time. But and then someone heard me play there, got me another job, and it just went from there. That's pretty much what I've done since, is solo. I married a Brazilian and I started a Brazilian band, but I got back into the same negatives.
Yeah. So basically, there's a very interesting story, right? Which is your first gig didn't quite go the way you hoped. So tell us a little bit more about that, but how you resolved to persevere, right? Please enlighten us.
And you just hit on a word that I love too: persistence, persevere.
Yes, ma'am.
Just don't stop. Make something out of it. I had been playing in this posh room where I wore long dresses, and it was it's where people went for the anniversaries and all that. Mm-hmm. So I get this gig, and I should have taken a clue from the name of it. It was called the Ponderosa. So I walked into this room with my piano and my setup and all that, and with my long gown on, and I look in, and there's nobody seated out there, but there's a lot of guys at the bar. Some of them looked like they were passed out at the bar, and I just started singing like Roberta Flack or something like that. And even the guy was passed out, just looked up like he had seen an angel. Said to him, I don't know where she came from, but look, it's a woman. And so they didn't want me to sing. I'm talking about not the boss, the customers. They just wanted to play the jukebox and dance with me. So I finally said, what the hell? This is just for a week. I'll dance with you. And so I got lots of customers. It wasn't because of my great talent, but I just danced with them. If that's what they wanted, if that made them happy, they keep them in there, keep them drinking. So I just kind of made, as they say, silk purse out of a sow's ear is an old saying, where you take something horrible and make something okay. But from that is where I got the other gig that was more to my style, the Roberta Flack, nice kind of music restaurant from there.
Because somebody noticed your talent. Somebody noticed your talent. Somebody noticed your talent, and basically. Oh yeah,
because I would sing a little bit every night, just to be fulfilling my job. And I think that somebody was in there and went to this restaurant owner and said, you need to go over and hear this lady. She does not belong there. And I think she belongs in your restaurant. And that, too, brought me a lifetime friendship. It was, it's too.
And had you not stayed true to your purpose, your desire, following your passion on a nightly basis, despite that not being what the audience wanted, right? You might not have. I could
have packed it up and gone home, as they say. But I said, no, I'm here for a week. I'll do it.
And that led to bigger and bigger gigs, right? So tell us about some of your travels before we get to the next step.
Yeah. Well, like I said, because of that, there were agents who got me jobs in different places. And so I went from Memphis to the Gulf Coast to a place called the White Pillars. And anyone who used to go to the Gulf Coast back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s knows about the White Pillars. And once again, I was kind of out of my element because they were not used to they were used to honky-tonk kind of musicians, not the kind of pop music that I was doing. And once again, someone came in and heard me and went down the street to the Broadwater Resort, which was a big deal back then, and brought the music director in to hear me. And he said, "You're too hip for the room." And I liked that saying. He put me in the piano lounge of that really nice hotel where I stayed for years. And then I got an abusive boyfriend, and to get away from him, I decided to move to New Orleans, and there started another
Yeah.
part
And
of my life.
as part of that gig, you had the chance to go to places like New York, LA, and sort of, as I remember it, your career was really starting to take off because you had set an intention that you wanted to be a solo superstar, right?
Yeah.
However, however,
Oh, yeah. What I would do with time off
mhm,
was to travel, because it's one thing in our field. If your best friends, if your family says, "Oh, you're just wonderful,
mhm,
you ought to be a star," da 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 da, well, then you start believing it, whether it's really true or not. So I decided I wanted to go hear what other people had to say, and I got really positive. Again, it was not comfortable. I might have been to New York one time in my life before that, and I just flew into town, and I had my little bag of tricks, and I knew about the place called, I always say it wrong, the Music Factory. I can't remember, but all the biggies were
mhm,
recording there. And I told the taxi, "That's where I want to go." And so I went, and I'm like standing waiting on the elevator, and this guy, because there were also actors there doing voiceovers and things like
mhm.
that. So this actor was standing next to me, and he goes, "Oh, I hear a Southern accent. What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm going to be a star." And he thought that was so funny. And he too remained my friend forever and told people to listen to my tapes that I had and all that. So it was just, I got positive feedback from that. They could have said, "Oh, you suck," but they said, "You're really good. Let me call my friend. You said you're going to LA. Let me call my friend in LA." And I flew from New York to LA. I don't know that I'd ever been to LA. And again, because of people helping me out, I stayed there for about a week or something like that. And they have a things where you go in the afternoon or something, and you sing your music, and it's a showcase kind of thing that you can go anywhere. I remember there was a chocolate factory, and there was this place and that place. And at one of those showcases I went to, there was a guy named Skip Lowe, God rest his soul. I can't imagine he's still with us, but he said, "I think you're remarkable, and I'm going to set up a showcase just for you
Wow.
without these other people." Oh, and by the way, the other people in the showcase would come to me and go, "I want you to sing my songs." So I kept getting this feedback that, you're on the right track. But again, they could have told me just the opposite. That's where the comfort comes in. I didn't know what. And you remember that mother that I told you about?
Mhm,
She started laying into me, but she was not incorrect. Because I said, "Mom, they're going to do a showcase, just me, and there's going to be record people there, and this, that, and the other to hear me." And I was writing my own songs, and I had not performed at the Troubadour at that time. But she tore into me. I was the worst mother who ever lived.
mhm,
"You cannot be doing that. You have a child. You have to come home."
mhm,
And she guilted me into foregoing that showcase. And
mhm,
when I called Skip Lowe and I said, "I'm really, really sorry, but personal things have come up and I can't stay through Monday, but
mhm.
I'll come back for the next time." And he said, "There will be no next time." So that kind of ended it there. And it just made me start thinking, yes, I do have a child. I can't keep flying back and forth and doing all this. And so I decided to forego these lofty dreams and try to enjoy what I could on my level where I am still to this day, which has been very satisfactory for me.
But you said something that is of so much value, right? Like you had all this negative reinforcement from your mother about, sort of trying to uphold your responsibility as a mother whilst trying to forward your dream of being a superstar. You said something earlier that really resonated with me, which is that you, to this day, tell everybody that you had a choice, and you made that choice, and you don't believe in playing the victim, right? Despite
Right.
how your mother was. So tell us about that a little bit more.
Well, in her unkind way and
Mm,
her realistic way, she probably was telling me what I was thinking in the back of my mind anyway.
mm,
And and again, it goes back to that: what does society dictate? You're supposed to put your children above everything else. I
mm,
don't know if it's instinctive in us to want to take care of our children or what, but I play a game with people. I say, name me one super female superstar who ever made it after she had children.
mm,
Men can do it. All the men superstars either never had children or they had children. It didn't matter because they could go on the road and know that the children were well taken care of. I can't name one
mm,
female superstar that was taking care of a child
mm,
and became a superstar. You have to focus on one or the other. And so I had already made a decision earlier in life that I wanted this son,
mm.
and without realizing it, I had kind of like set the course for the rest of my life. So it's not fair and it's not perfect, but I try to put the word out there to female musicians. You can eventually juggle it all. You can eventually be a great mom and a great performer. Madonna, look, I think she's a good mother. She's a performer. She's all of that. But she started that after she became a superstar. But I just think that if you really want to be a superstar, hold off on having children. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just reality as far as I'm concerned. And again, I made my own choices, and I can look back today and say, man, I was just that close to being Linda Ronstadt. There's a whole lot more. The people that wanted to be my manager, Bonnie Raitt's manager, and I said, no, I'd rather have Linda Ronstadt's manager. I was kind of, but I look back and I think, I don't know that I would be any happier if I'd become a superstar. I am a really happy human being today. Who knows if I would have been this happy if I'd pursued that. And you know what else I learned? All superstars eventually are has-beens.
Mm.
And that must be really hard to deal with when you're at the top of the food chain. I only know two people who remain at the top of the food chain, Elton John and Billy Joel.
Mm.
And other than that, everybody else plays state fairs and casinos and whatever. So there's always a fall from the top.
Mm.
So I would have had to deal with that. So I'm fine that happened, that I made those choices. I don't regret it for 1 second.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I am looking at the time, but there is one thing that I want to delve into, which is you talked about at the beginning of the story how your mother showed a lot of insecurity within you about how you look, um, and how that made you feel as a woman and your self-worth, your beauty. And you mentioned that it wasn't until much later in life, when you were 70, that you sort of woke up to how beautiful you truly are. So could you paint us a picture of that turning point were there choices that you made that helped you wake up to how beautiful you truly are? And what
I,
advice?
I, I just think that with time, you really start sorting out what's important. My opinion in me was finally I realized my opinion in me was more important than my mother's opinion in me or this dude's opinion in me, what I thought was best. The other thing was not putting so much importance on appearance. That was everything to my mother. She had wanted a drop dead beautiful daughter, and she got me. Not bad, but certainly not a beauty. And so that's what it was entrenched in my mind. If you don't look great, all over, nothing's going to happen. I stopped believing in that appearances thing, and I started thinking about people through the years who were not even particularly attractive, but they succeeded. They were happy, and their personalities were so wonderful that what they looked like didn't matter. So it was again, it was not a moment. It
Hmm.
just was a period of time that finally, when I was 70, I started to say, well, you know what? For 70, you look pretty good. And then I would look back at pictures of me when I was young, and I would go, how could you think that that was ugly? But I did. Where I performed for a long time, there are big mirrors next to us. And I would not look in that mirror because I didn't like, I thought I was ugly. And so I thought that would just kill my show if I had to look at myself.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I could tell young people, number one, you were given your looks. Make the best of your looks. Be healthy. Do like I do. I still paint up at 78 years old. I enjoy being a girl or whatever they say. Make the best of your looks. Don't don't allow yourself to look ugly. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. Do your best to look the best you can, but it is really not the end of the world if you're not considered a drop dead beauty. People are going to think you're beautiful from the inside, as they say. And people don't really care so much what you look like. You know what they care about? How you make them feel. So dwell on that. Dwell on being kind to other people, making them feel better about themselves.
Hmm.
And looks really don't matter, that much.
Hmm. Well, I don't think we could have ended on a stronger note. And for that, my Henrietta, I am so grateful. Thank you, thank you so much for making the time to join us today. I want to just, for our audience, share that they can find you on Facebook, they can find you on Instagram, and I will also add your email in the episode description if you're okay with it, so that
I am. I love to get emails.
mhm. And you are also a life coach, right? So if people wanted to seek out, your service, your
Counsel.
mentorship, your counsel, that is something that you are open to. And
Yeah.
with that, I want to turn to my audience and I want to say thank you so much for being you. In Henrietta's words, you are so beautiful. Wake up to the beauty that is you.
Yes. Yes.
Until the next time, I wish you love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.
Thanks.